Hello, hello, and welcome to the DIY gift tags, Valentines, and Galentines tutorials. These are gift tags, but they can also be bookmarks. I'm super excited. They're super fun. If you got the kit from us here at Splatter Bloom, you're getting Opera Rose from Winsor and Newton, Quinacridone Coral from Daniel Smith. We've got Winsor Red Deep from Winsor and Newton, and Quinacridone Violet from Daniel Smith. And I am using wet paint dots. I just got these out of the tubes. Yours will be dry, and that's okay. You're just going to grab some water and put a couple little drops of water on top of each of the dots to activate it. Give it maybe 60 seconds or so, but they'll be ready to go. I'm using a white plate as my palette, but if you don't have anything on hand, you can always use like the lid of a yogurt container, or you can even use the little piece of paper that the dots are on as your mixing station. And if you're painting at home and you don't have these exact colors, totally fine. Just grab 3 or 4 colors that you really like and you think will fit the bill, and let's get crazy. All right, so I am going to start with Opera Rose. And we're going to be doing a variegated wash. So we're going to be moving through all of these colors from one color to another. And when we're doing a wash, we want it to be nice and smooth. And so we're going to want to have our paint mixture be very juicy because we want it to remain wet while we're working on it. So I'm grabbing some paint from my palette. You can even go directly into your water cup if you feel like you need more or you want to lighten up the color that you're getting. So I'm going to work my way down about 1/4 of the way. We have 4 colors. If you're using 5, do a 5th. Using 3, do a 3rd. Math. All right. And I'm going to add just a little more color in here if you're like, I just want it to be a little darker, just to add some more paint. No biggie. And notice how I'm pulling the paint down. I'm working down. I'm not filling the whole area. Okay, so imagine as we're doing these washes, it helps when you are working your way gradually across the area you're trying to cover. So now as I'm putting my paintbrush down, notice how the tip of my brush is along that edge where the new color is. And I'm pulling it across the edge, and my brush is pretty flat on the page. I'll show you again with a side view when we do the next color, but I'm adding in this new color here. This is the Quinacridone Coral, coming about halfway. And the reason why we do that flat push and just having the very tippy top of the brush connect is because we really want to have a just gentle transition. And if we were to just put a loaded brush right there smack in the middle, that paint is going to swirl and mix a lot more erratically than if we have just the tip of the brush. We're going to have a lot more control. So let's go ahead and do a little side-by-side situation here. All right, so let's watch where my brush is going as I add the Winsor Red Deep. Okay, so I'm going to put it down, and the tip of my brush is going to be right there. See, just the tip went connected, and already that paint is mixing and mingling. So could you imagine if we put our whole brush on there? It would have been like, party! Which is, you know, sometimes what we want, but for this nice, gentle wash, we want to have it be a little bit more control. Okay. So I'm just going to take a clean, damp brush and go over that line a little bit. If you find there's a spot where there's a little more paint than you want it, dry your brush off and just lift it up with your paintbrush, almost like you're mopping it up with a sponge. If you want it to be darker, just add more paint. Okay. All right, let's get into our Quinacridone Violet. Your puddles on your palette should be really flowy and smooth. If you're noticing it's kind of hardening and drying, you're going to definitely want more water to make sure it's nice and juicy. Okay, so once again, we're taking the tip of our brush, grabbing our mixture and bringing it across that line. Okay, and then let's take it down to the bottom. All right, so cute. We love it. All right, so that is going to be our variegated wash. This is a really nice way to start because you get to see how your colors play and interact together. Oh my gosh, so pretty. This can be like a really lovely, almost looks like a sunset, doesn't it? Ah, so pretty. All right, so stay tuned while we do the next one. Okay, so this is our second bookmark or gift tag for the Halloween, Valentine's or Galentine's collection. Today we are going to be talking about, I say that like we're doing this on different days. In this part of the video, on this gift tag, oh my word, on this gift tag we're going to be using the bleed technique. And this is super fun. This is when you see the colors bleeding and blending together. They're mixing, they're mingling. And this one, we're just going to make little hearts all over the bookmark, any size, any color, and we're going to let them kind of smooch together. So what I mean by that is, let's do a little heart. I like to start at the top and work my way down so that I'm not bringing my hand into it. Just doing a little heart here, and then I think I'll do a little pink one or a little purple one, and see how I let them connect with my brush. So this color is going on into that second heart. Let's zoom in. All right, and I'm going to go maybe a little bit bigger on this one. You might want them to be, your water to be fairly juicy, just because you don't want it to dry out before you've gotten a chance to connect with everything, but you don't want it to be like spilling over so much to the point that it's really making a big watery mess. I find that if it's just nice, smooth coverage, and not like a big puddle, like you want it to be like an ice skating rink, not like the ice is melting, okay? So let's keep going. You can do teeny tiny ones just with the tip of your brush, like, you're gonna do something like that. Okay. And I love doing this type of activity where we pick a shape and let the colors bleed together, because it shows us, ooh, that was wild. It shows us how the colors mix and mingle together in ways that we might not have expected. Like if we were trying to get a certain color or effect on purpose, it would maybe be kind of hard, but here we can see it happen just by the excitement and delight of throwing some paint on the page here. Okay, this Opera Rose color is so fun. You might want to have some go off the page. You might want to do it like a chain of hearts or something. So just because I'm doing them random at random sizes doesn't mean you have to do that either. Look at that fun color. And here, there's almost a little too much water here. So I'm going to take my brush and just kind of suck up some of that water so we can still see the heart and the bleeding. The bleeding heart. Okay. You can play around with how light or dark your hearts are by adding more or less water. The more water there is in your paint to water ratio, the lighter it's going to be. The more paint in your paint to water ratio, the darker it's going to be. Let's see. And you can play around with when you let the shapes touch. You can play around with adding water first, and then, like, let's just do one with just water, okay? And seeing what happens. What? So that color is coming from here. I didn't even add any color to this, which is so cool. Let's do this right here. And this is, my kids have gotten into the habit of saying, so relaxing, when they're feeling relaxed. And I feel like this would warrant a so relaxing, because it is. It's so relaxing. Let's do one right here. This is a really great exercise if you feel like you're like, I don't know where the paint is going. How is it connecting? Like, I'm getting all these really wild blooms and bleeds all over my paper. I feel like I have no control. First of all, look at what beauty you can make if you just like let it happen. So like, be easy on yourself. Trying something new can be hard. And I'm proud of you for doing it. Okay. And that being said, if you're wanting to learn more about how to have a little bit more control over that element of watercolor, this is a really great experiment to use to kind of start noticing how much water am I using versus how much paint. What does it look like when the paint is swirling? What is happening when it does something that I really like? If you want to even like, I don't know if this would be helpful, but maybe film what you're doing and then you're like, how did I do that one? Go for it. If that feels like too much hard research, skip it. All right. We're getting there. I can tell this purple, this Quinacridone violet is going to be my favorite color out of all these. I just have a feeling. But yeah, you can do this with any shape. Circles are fun. Hearts are cute. Triangles, squares. Whatever you would like. If you want to add some pizzazz to this afterwards, you could always, if you feel like your hearts got kind of like commingled more than you were hoping, you can always take a little felt tip pen once it's dry and go over it to add a little bit more definition to your shapes. And that can be it can be kind of loose. It doesn't have to be, like right around the edges. You can just do some fun, loose little hearts. That can give it a little more structure if you're into that. Oh, it would be fun to use like a sparkly pen. Sparkly pen would be great. Okay. Oh my gosh, y'all. We're almost there. I'm adding a little one up top. I just felt like it needed a little pizzazz. And it's okay if some of them aren't touching any of them. No biggie. And here I haven't really mixed the colors too much like together on my palette. I'm mostly using just one color and I'm allowing the colors to mix on the page. So when the colors mix, you can mix them before you add them to the page. You can mix them after they're on the page by letting the wet and wet swirl together. It's really up to you. I do both, and I don't know that there's a rule of thumb other than, maybe I know what color I want ahead of time, or maybe I think it needs a little bit more once I've already added it to the page. So it really just depends on what's going on with your painting. And you'll notice, oh my gosh, I'm totally out of the page. Sorry. So you'll notice, good Lord, you'll notice that it's drying up here and it's drying a lot lighter. If you were to speed this up, you'd see that the paint is spreading as it dries. So what it looked like as soon as I put the paint on is very different from how it looks like now. And like watching this little piece speed up would be just so cool. Let's get a little side view. See a little side by side. Oh, so cute. Oh my gosh, we love it. Okay, so that is our second gift tag, I'll be right back with the third. Okay, for this gift tag, we are going to talk about layering paint and creating a glaze. So this will require a little patience. So we're actually going to work on 2 at a time because we'll have to wait for the layers to dry in between. Okay, so I'm going to just do one color for this. I think, I don't know, I guess we could add in more color, but I'm going to let's start with our, oh, I'm feeling indecisive. Let's start with our Quinacridone Coral. Okay, and I'm going to make like a big, imagine there's a heart like right here. Okay, and so I'm going to make a big heart covering a lot of our card here. We're going to bring this wash and make a nice flat wash down. So remember, we're not outlining so much as just pulling the paint across the page. Okay. Doodaloo. So I'll pull this down to about here. Let's see. And here there's a little bit more paint than I wanted, so I'm going back in with water and I'm just wiggling that paint out. And we are moving down to the bottom here. And let's pull that paint down. Just giving myself a little bit of a guideline here. And let's meet it in the middle. And we're trying to work somewhat fast because we don't want that to dry up before we're done with it. And you can fuss with the shape a little bit, but I like where that is going. Okay, so that is the first layer of this. Now we are going to wait for it to dry. For this one, we are actually going to use a pencil because we need a little bit of guidance. Okay, so I'm going to use a pencil really, really light because once you draw the pencil on, if you paint over it, it's going to show. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little loop-de-loop with a heart. Okay, and we are going to do, can you see that? You'll be able to see it once I put paint on it. Okay, and we are going to do a neon style sign. So let's start with what we're going to do is we are going to create a line on the underside, okay, of water. And I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to add a little bit of paint just so you can see it a little bit better. But just do it with water for you. Don't touch the pencil line. We're going around it. So it's almost as if the pencil line has like a little very tiny bubble around it, okay? So we're going to do that. And this is just with water for you. Okay. And just pull that color out or that water out to the bottom edge of our painting, of our tag. Okay. Then take your most neon color and you're going to make it really, really bright just along the line where it's connecting to the heart. So like that. And then we're going to take our brush and coax that paint to have a nice, gentle, gradual glow outward. Okay. Nice. Might add a little bit more up here. So the way that it's adding more paint is I just kind of tickled the top of my paint dot here, and I am lightly tapping it along this edge. Okay. And we want this to gradually fade out in an even way along where that neon line is. I'm kind of imagining it's going out to about there. And it will, because we wet our whole paper, you can see where my little thumbprint, my fingerprint is. Let's cover that up. So because we wet the whole bottom side of the paper, it will keep growing out there in that as it moves. And that's okay. That's what we want. Like just like a glowing light, it will kind of cascade outward. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the top too. I, again, am using paint with color just so you can see, but you're going to do this in just water. Okay, and I'm going around the outline of the heart to varying degrees of success, okay? And I want to make sure that this whole area is super wet. Don't worry about the inside of the heart yet, okay? And you're doing this with just water. If you need to add a little tint of something, just a little bit of color, go for it. But the goal is to keep this whole area nice and wet so we can dump that color in and give it a nice glowing effect. So I'm just grabbing from my water cup now and pulling that wet spot away from our neon lights, okay? Could be helpful to tape this one down. All right, so let's grab some paint on our brush and let's go ahead and tippity tap along the line that we created. The cool thing about watercolor is that wherever you put that paint, it's going to go only where the wet paint is. It's not going to bleed into the part that you've left dry, which is so cool. I love that crisp line that's created between the wet and the dry parts of your paper. I just think it's so powerful. Okay. Here we go. If it looks like some area is drying faster than you'd like, go ahead and just add a little bit more water to it to kind of hydrate it. And that'll give you a little bit more time. You can just kind of dip your cup in the water or dip your dip your brush in your water cup. That's going to give you a little bit more time. So here I'm making a nice little gradient wash radiating out from our little heart. Okay. And I could do the inside of the heart right now, but honestly, I just don't trust my hand because I'm going to totally drag it through. Okay. Oh. All right. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more pigment here, like right to the edge of my line and let it spread out on its own. Watercolor is really great at dispersing itself in a really beautiful way. So I'm going to let it do its thing. Hey, girl, do your thing. Okay. There we go. Looks like it's kind of running a little wild there. Maybe too much water. So I picked up some of that water. I'm going to just hydrate this area a little bit more, just in case. And I think we're in a good spot. Okay. Let's go back to our heart. This feels pretty dry. You can tell that it's dry if you hover your finger over it and it feels, if you are like feeling like a cool little whisper from a fairy, it's not dry. That's the water's still drying up. If you still aren't sure, you can't really tell, you can kind of just touch it a little bit. And if it's cool to the touch, then it's not dry. Also, if it looks shiny, then it's definitely not dry. So I might give this a little zap with my dryer thing. So I'm just going to pause it so you don't have to listen to it. Hang on one sec. Okie doke. Now that's nice and dry. I'm going to take the same color, our Quinacridone Coral, and I'm going to basically do the same thing except just a little bit smaller. Okay? This kind of reminds me of the Grinch when his heart is growing. We're just making little hearts inside this heart. And by layering up, we're not using a darker color here. It's just because it's got 2 layers of this color, which is so cool. When you layer paint, it's called a glaze. When you layer it once it's been dried. And this is one of my most favorite techniques because you can really see the underlayers of the paint, which we love. So I'm just doing that. Let's go right here. Oh, grabbed a little bit of the other color, but I don't mind. Getting wild. All right. Let's meet in the middle. Make sure we're happy with the wash and our edge lines. They're not perfect, but I'm okay with that. So let's let that dry a little bit. I feel confident now in heading back into my the middle of my heart. I feel like I'm ready. So we don't want this to really, because it's such a small area in there, we don't really need to do it like how we did with a big wet spot of water, like how we did for the outside, because it's pretty much all going to be really glowy. Okay. There we go. All right, so we're going to let that dry. Give it a little time there. I might actually just add a little bit more to the edge right around the neon light part, so we get a nice sharp color there. Nice contrast between the white. And this looks kind of like it needs some attention. Okay. All right, there we go. Let's pause that. This one's definitely not dry, so once again, I'm going to pause it and give it a little blow dry, and I'll be back when it's dry. Okay, so I think that looks good enough. It's still a little bit wet, but I just couldn't wait. So if you wanted to do a different color, you totally could. Let's add a little bit of the Winsor Red Deep in here. Why not? So let's go ahead and do that. Again, we're just making the heart a little bit smaller, and we're gonna drag the paint across the page, get a nice, even little washeroonie here. All right. Moving down. Here we go. I kind of like to give myself a little bit of a guideline of where the paint is going once I get closer to the bottom, just because I don't want to overshoot the area. But you got to work fast so these lines don't dry up. So just keep on keeping on. If you get a little dry line, it's okay. There we go. We love it. Okay. There we go. Now we're going to come over here and try something a little bit different. So in the first layer, we allowed this paint to blend outwards by wetting the whole area and adding the paint first. The next time, like right now, what we're going to do is we are going to actually start with the paint and blend it outwards to give it a little bit more oomph. So I like to do this when I'm wanting something really, really dark. The reason why I start with the water first is it's a nice soft base layer. It gives that glowy feeling, but neon lights can be really, really powerful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go directly on to my Opera Rose, and I am going to follow the line nice and close and just kind of go maybe to this corner here, a little bit at a time. And I'm going to clean my brush off and dry it. And then I'm going to take my brush and just kind of shimmy it along that line that I made. So the tip of my brush is meeting the edge of the line that I made. So let's go ahead and do like a little zoom in from a side view so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so you can see I'm going right into the dot here. Little water, but honestly, mostly a lot of paint. Kind of like a butter cream consistency. Here I am putting that line right along the edge of the white, kind of following the line that we already made. Okay, and see how there's a harder line around this edge? I'm going to clean my brush in my water. I'm going to dab it on my paper towel so it's pretty dry, just slightly damp. And then I'm going to follow that line and just shimmy, 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 shimmy. So I'm gently blending out that line along our neon. And the reason, I'm going to actually do it again. The reason why this works so well to blend that color out is because when we shimmy our brush up and down, it's creating a slightly damp area where we're putting down that clean water, and it's allowing this line, instead of being a really sharp line, it's allowing it to gently blend, but only where we have placed the damp brush. And it's not going to go cascading everywhere because we're not using a ton of water. Like the more water that you use, the more unpredictable that flow of water can be. So let's go ahead and do it again so you can see it up close. Okay, so again, I've turned my tag upside down. We're following the line of the paint here. And I'm just going to do that section. The reason why you don't want to do it all at once is because you don't want this line to dry on you. So I've wet and dried my brush so it's clean and only lightly damp. If you want it to be a little bit more intense, go ahead and add some more in. Nice. Okay. Let's do it over here. Oop, that's very dark, but we're okay with it. Okay. So once again, clean my brush, dry, 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 tickle, tickle, tickle. It looks like maybe this was a little bit too dry around this edge, so I'm just adding a little bit more, and then wet my brush, dry my brush, tickle, 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 tickle. Okay, let's do it right here. There we go. Wet my brush, dry my brush, tickle, 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 tickle. I feel like that sounds so creepy, but I think it gets the visual across. We're giving it a little tickle. All right, let's keep going. We're almost done. All right. I'm going to go around the bump. There we go. Wet my brush, dry my brush, tickle, 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 tickle. Okay. I love it. Ta-da! I'm going to wait a little bit before we do the inside because, shaky hands. Let's go ahead and look at it from the top. Do you see how it's glowing? And I feel like this is giving us 3D. Oh my goodness. Okay, I might do a little bit of this pink, a little bit of our opera rose, and let's do our next layer. Remember, make sure it's dry. And imagine what would happen if it wasn't dry. I know you are asking. So if it wasn't dry, these layers would not sit on top of each other easily. These layers would start to bleed and blend into each other like they did with our hearts, our bleeding hearts that we did in the previous tutorial. So, it's not all the way dry at the bottom here, and you'll see. So speak and it shall happen, I guess. So this is a great learning opportunity. I was too excited. So at the bottom of this, we will zoom in a little bit and I'll show you what we got going on. Okay, so let's zoom in. I don't know if you can see here, but do you see how this line is not very clean? And do you see how it's kind of, paint's kind of leaching in this way? That's because this line here was not totally dry. So we're having some commingling, which is okay. It's not a big deal. And I'll show you how we can fix it, but we do have to wait till it's dry. If it's really intense, you can probably take your paper towel and just clean up that line a little bit. It will lift up some pigment. So I've grabbed a little bit of paper towel and I'm just gonna tap, 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 just to kind of dry everything up. I don't want to pick up too much of the pigment here, but I do want to, this almost creates like a little dam so it won't keep spreading. Okay. So we'll just let that sit a little bit. Let's go back and do our little heart here. Okay, so I'm going around the interior of this heart. Remember, you want the paint to flow smoothly, but you also want it to be really dark. So a lot of paint, a little bit of water in your flowing paint mixture. And I think I can do it all in one go, but if you want to start with half, go for it. Okay, let's do that. Tap, 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 and then tickle, 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 tickle. Okay. There we go. How cute. Okay. And I do want it to be a little bit lighter in the interior of the heart here. So I think that's nice. Okay. I'm going to blow dry a little bit on this one and we'll kind of tidy up that edge before we get started on the rest of it. Okay, so I'm going to put you on pause. Be back soon. Okie doke. So what I'm going to do to tidy this edge up is I'm going to take the same color I used on that last circle. I'm just going to clean that line up so it's nice and crisp. And you're probably going to want to cover over your whole heart again, or at the very least blend this out. So this is going to help you get a nice crisp line. The reason why you don't just do part of it is because then you would get a dry line. So you could either pull up that paint over the whole thing, or we could do our tickle tickle move like we were doing on the neon one. But that's going to give it a little bit of that gradient look, that kind of ombre look. So it just depends on what you're going for. Okay. So I'm okay with what's happening here. So we'll go ahead. Oh man, that's kind of trippy. Yeah. So we will go ahead and blow dry that. Well, let's just let that dry. I think that'll dry pretty fast. We'll put our final touch here on our little glowing light. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take some of this purple, and I want a really, really strong color. I could do the hot pink, but I want it to be a little bit more intense. And here we're going to pretend we're ballerinas and use the very, very tip of our brush. If you're using a round brush, that's probably the best. If you have a detail brush, that would be great. But we can do this with the tip of our brush, and we're just going to give it the slightest outline, the teeniest, tiniest outline you've ever seen around our shape. And that is going to be the part of the light that is right up against the neon sign. This might be a little bit too dark, but we're going to go with it. And if you need to go slow, that's okay. You know I'm concentrating because my head's really close to the page. And this is going to make it pop by making it a slightly darker color. Again, maybe I should have mixed. Let me try it for the rest of this. I might mix some of the Opera Rose with that purple. Let's see if that helps. Okay. But it's not as dark and as vibrant as I want it to be. But you know what? As I'm looking at it on the camera, I'm actually okay with how it looks. So we'll proceed. And that's something like, if you're ever like, oh my gosh, does this look good or bad? I can't tell. I'm too close to it, too emotionally close, or actually physically close. You can always take a picture of your painting, and it helps you kind of gain a little bit of a different perspective. So that is always an option. I like to do that when I'm working on pet portraits. Not that I do that a ton anymore, but when I did, I would always take a picture before I was like officially done to see if there were any spots that I felt like just needed a little TLC. Okay, so is this my lightest of hand? No. Is this my smallest of brush? No. But does it still look pretty cool? You betcha. Okay, let's do that interior part of the heart. Again, we're going right up against the white line. We're not blending this one out. Hopefully everybody's interior heart is dry. Okay, it's kind of cool. All right, so this one is done. Put that off to the side. Let's finish up this little cutie. Oh my goodness, how many more layers? We could go on for eternity. So let's go ahead, do another one. And I like how the one in the back is a little bit lighter, so it looks like it's coming into the foreground. But if you wanted it to have the reverse effect, you could totally start with a heart in the middle and then paint a bigger heart around it. Actually, that would achieve the same effect. Yeah. Just depends what you're feeling. All right. And I'm going to do one more blow dry and then probably one more layer, and we'll call that a day. Okie dokie, let's do our last one. All right, I'm going to mix some of our Quinacridone Violet with our Opera Rose just to get a nice dramatic center heart here. I want to see the whole heart on the tag. And I'm okay that this one's a little bit darker than the other ones. The other ones were nice and light, but I don't mind that this one's a little bit darker for the drama. It's kind of a weird shaped heart by the time we got to the middle of it, but we're okay with that. It's still pretty cute. All right. There we go. How fun is that? Super cute. So in these two, we learned about doing glazes and layering and waiting for things to dry in between. And here we talked about a couple different ways that we can blend color out. So we can either start by adding water first and then add the paint in, or we can start with the paint and pull the paint out with a dry, damp brush to give it a nice little tickle, tickle, tickle as we smooth out that edge. And then we also achieved a neon effect. So cool. And then you'll want to erase your pencil line afterwards, but mine's still wet, so I'll wait on that. All right, we ready to do the next one? See ya right now. Okay, for this tutorial, we're going to play around with the glaze technique again by kind of combining these two ideas. So we're going to use the glaze technique like we did in here, but we're going to create a cacophony of hearts like we did here. So I'll show you what we mean. All right. So here I am going to do some light-hearted hearts all over my tag. And I don't have to worry about them touching. In fact, I probably don't want them touching until it's dried in between. So just put some hearts wherever, big, small. You could do polka dots, whatever you want. And we'll let this dry. And then once it's dry, we're going to do some overlapping hearts. And you'll see the difference between the bleed and the glaze. Both of these are ways of using two colors, but the results are very different. Okay. Let's see. And hearts are kind of hard to draw sometimes. So if you wanted to get like a little, I don't know if you had like a little tracer or something, a stencil, you can totally do that. Probably a little late to say that, but totally an option. Or if you wanted to do circles, but you were worried about doing, you know, nice clean circles, you could always take a bottle cap or something like a plastic cap and just dip it in your paint and then put it on here and fill it in. And that would give you a nice even circle. Some lazy gal hacks for you. Work smarter, not harder, right? Okie dokie artichoke. Okay. And, oh goodness, use a lot of paint here. And the reason why I want to keep it lighter than that is because as we layer the paint over, the glaze effect is much more, I don't know if effective is the word I'm looking for, just much more powerful if you have it be lighter layers so you can see through. So different paints have different qualities, and something I look for in a paint is if it has transparency. It's like transparency rating. Because I love to use the glaze, I want to make sure that it's not super opaque so I can see the layers underneath. And that's why I'm not a huge gouache gal. If you've ever used gouache before, gouache is, or if you haven't used gouache before, gouache is like watercolor in that it is activated by adding water, but it's going to be more opaque than watercolor, so you can layer it on a little bit more like acrylic. Okay. I feel like this is probably good enough. Let's do one more with the purple here. Okay. Getting some really exciting shapes here. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna let this dry and then we will add a second layer. So fun. Okay, I'm gonna pause you for your ears and I'll meet you back. Okay, so we have done our first layer. We waited for it to dry and now we're gonna do our second layer. Let's see what happens. All right, let's do one right here. Oh my gosh, do you see what happened? Can you see that? Here, I'll make it a little bit bigger. But the layer creates this nice little overlapping situation. Oh my gosh, so cute. Okay, let's keep going. I don't know why this has captured my heart so much, but this is my absolute favorite technique. We love a glaze here at Splatter and Bloom. It's just the best, in my completely personal opinion. Okay, there we go. Let's do some purples. And this is a really fun way to see how colors mix together as well. A lot of times we see how colors mix when they are combined like wet. So adding green or adding yellow and blue together, if you mix it when it's wet, it creates green. But if you mix it in layers, whoops, totally ran my hand through right here. If you mix it in layers, we're going to get a really cool way where, depending on your paper, if you're using a nice watercolor paper with some texture to it, you might be able to see both those colors happening at once. And it's really cool because you get to see the layering of that green taking shape, which is just, ugh, my little color nerd heart. We love to see it. Okay, get a couple more in here. So fun. If you want to play with doing a little like wet in wet, and let me make this bigger so it overlaps a little bit. A little wet in wet and glaze in here. You can totally add in like a little pop of color into one of the hearts that you've already done. So you can get to see both those cool techniques in action. Okay. And you can go do this for as long as you want. You could even cover the whole thing with hearts and keep layering up. And as long as you wait to have it dry in between layers, you are going to still be able to see all those hearts, which is so cool. Oopsie. The one tricky thing about this is that you might accidentally do a wet and wet because you forget which one is dry and which one is wet. So that's what happened there. That one might be a little squishier, a little more wet and wet than glaze, and I'm okay with that. We're going to just let it happen. But I think that's super fun. I think I'm going to leave it there. Let's take a comparison side by side of your other little heart one. So they have a very similar feel to them, but we got to use two totally different techniques. I'm curious. Let me know. Which one's your favorite? So cute. Okay. Let's keep on keeping on. I'll see you for the next one. Here I'm at. Hello, hello. In this one, we are going to learn how to paint roses, and we're going to do some nice bleeding with roses. Okay, so let's zoom in real close so you can get up close. And oh, we are as close as we can get. Okay, I might get the side view too so you can really see. Okay. So as we are doing this, we're just going to be making a bunch of little C's, okay? So I'm going to start with my pink here, and think about roses. The petals all kind of overlap and interconnect with each other. We are going to be creating little C's and having them connect at different spots and leaving some white space in between. And we're going to start dark in the center and move out. And all that sounds like a lot of complicated things, but let's go ahead and do it together. How about you watch the first couple ones and then we'll go from there. Okay, so what I'm going to do in the very center, I'm going to go on my little tiptoes with my brush, and I'm going to just do some nice little C's here. And notice how they're not all like separate. I'm kind of connecting the edges of the C to the petals in the layer above it. And now that I've done my center, I'm adding some water, and I'm actually just going to go in with just water and let that color really make its way out as I go, because all those petals are bunched together in the center, and as I work my way out, they're getting lighter. Those C's can be a little thicker as we push our brushes down. If you're like, I want a little more pizzazz there, just drop some paint in. Okay, so you're like, oh my gosh, Kate, that was so many things to think about it. Okay, so let's do it again and watch one or two more times, and I'll talk you through it each time we go, so you'll have the verbiage too while you're going. So we're going to do some tiny little circles or sorry, semicircles, some little C's. And if you need to move your page around a little bit so they don't look quite so uniform, you can totally do that. Don't feel like you have to keep it all in one place all the time. Okay. Now that we've got our inner part, I'm going to add some water to my brush. And I'm going to start making my little C's. I'm going to push down a little bit as I go. So the middle of my C is nice and fat and juicy. I'm leaving white space in between, really just the tips of the C's are touching. If I want some pizzazz, I can throw some in there. That's so fun. But I definitely don't need to. But why wouldn't we, right? Okay. Let's do one in a different color. All right. So we're going to start in the center, nice and small, teeny tiny. Our interior petals. We're leaving some white space in between. Sometimes the tips of our C's touch the petals in between that came before it. Sometimes they don't. That's okay. Okay, let's rinse that off. And this will help lighten by rinsing our brush off. It helps lighten that color. If any part of it is starting to look like maybe a little too uniform, just add a little C. The way that we make our petals look a little fatter as we go, a little like more fluffed, is just by pushing our brush down. So we start with the tip, we push, and we lift. Tip, push, lift. And you'll notice I'm letting these overlap, because I'm trying to get that kind of wet and wet situation here. All right, so if you feel ready, come along with me. If not, that's okay. I'm just going to work my way around my page. I'm going to do my little C's in the middle. Okay. Roses and nature, nothing is ever perfect, so good job. You're doing great. There's no such thing as perfect. Look at you go. All right, I've got my water. Now I'm starting to make bigger C's. And you might be like, why are we leaving the white space in between? Well, imagine those little white spaces are like the reflections of the petals, not reflections, but where the sun or the light source is hitting our flowers. So we're getting some nice light of the tip of those petals. And that's what's happening there. And it creates this illusion of petal. So as you're making your little C's, you can think about what would the edge of my petal look like? Maybe it isn't. So really, maybe it isn't totally like a C. Maybe it's a little wiggle worm. Okay. What would my petal look like? And basically what we are painting, and we're not really painting like the petal, we're painting the shadow in between the petals. And around the edge, we're kind of getting those petals. Okay, so this one looks a little too uniform, so I'm just coming in and doing some light little pizzazz here. If you start out really dark and you're like, ooh, I wish I had gone lighter on that, you can always just throw some water on. So I'll show you how that works. So let's go ahead and actually here, I'm going to do it really dark in purple down here. Okay, so we're starting with our little C's. We're leaving our little white space in between so we can see those petals happening. We're tricking the eye by making it look like we're painting petals, but we're really painting the dark that's around the petals. I'm adding more water because I'm like, oh, this one's too dark. Let's add more water. But it's still looking really dark. What do I do? What do I do? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just splash some clean water into the center. And you'll see as I tap it here, it's pushing that water out to the exterior parts of this rose. All right. Oh my gosh, isn't this better than a dozen roses? This is so fun. You can give somebody a dozen roses just by painting it. All right, so let's go ahead and, whoa, oh my gosh, my picture almost fell over. Let's go from the top view so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm doing for composition. I like that we have some dark and some light. I worked my way down so we could kind of get some of that mixing and blending. Now looking at it, I think I want a little bit more dark up here at the top. And you could leave it like this, or you could fill in the whole space. So it really just depends on what look you're going for. Okay. Getting a little wild up there, but I don't hate it. So maybe we'll do one right here. And we're just doing our little C's. It's okay if it bumps against its neighbor. There we go. Adding some more water down to this one because why not, you know? And then maybe we have like a little one that's like not super open, but it's really robust and juicy and dark, you know? It's just like, it's going to open tomorrow. It's playing hard to get. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I will open it up. Maybe it's underneath. Kind of got a little bit too much happening in there in the center. I didn't leave enough white space. So what I'm doing is I'm lifting up some of that paint with my brush, cleaning my brush, tapping it on my paper towel, and lifting up some of that paint just so it lightens up so it's not the focal point of the painting. All right, let's do like a little one right there. I find it helps if you have your brush a little bit more upright than side to side here, just so you have a little bit more leverage of like the thick to thin moves. Let's do one like right here. And I kind of like some of the white space that's happening. So I don't want to totally overpower it. I'm going to leave some of that white space. So I love where that's landed. And that's roses, my friend. How fun. And we did some wet and wet. If you're like, you know, some of mine don't have the same kind of definition as I want, go back in and do the same thing over. And you'll get just a little bit more bonus points if it's not all the way dry, but like a little bit dry. And this will just kind of give it a little extra oomph. But honestly, I think it looks better when you just do it one, because you really get to see that blending and mixing at its finest. So that's that. All right, let's get to the next one. Okay, if you were like, "Ooh, those roses, those were too intense, Kate," I got you. We're gonna do some stripes. So this one is super fun. It's nice for brush control. It's super easy. You're just gonna create some straight lines. So I like to position it so I can move my hand like how I write, because that's the way that I get the straightest lines. I write sideways, so that's why this is sideways. So whatever makes the most sense, I'm just kind of sliding, like I'm keeping my hand in the same space, but I'm sliding my hand across the gift tag. And the goal is to like have them close but not touch. But the fun part is when they do touch by accident, and then they kind of mix and mingle, and it's just so cool. So, you know, get wild. No need to stress about this one. I think the more loosey-goosey it is, the more whimsical it appears. And you can practice with, you know, your widths. Maybe you want them to be really, really skinny. Okay. Or maybe you want them to be like a little bit chalkier. You can do that. It's kind of fun. Love it. Let's add some purple. Man, I'm trying to be whimsical. There we go. I forced the whimsy, and that's okay. I made them smooch. But sometimes you gotta kind of bring the whimsy, you know? I guess I haven't had enough coffee today, so my hand isn't shaking. Oh, there we go. Didn't mean to do that one, but there it is. Perfect. Perfect. Bring the whimsy. Okay. I like this. This is a really soft, like sweet little palette of colors. Okay. I like to have a smooth line where I don't see a lot of brush strokes, but if you don't mind the brush strokes, that can be a really cute effect. I don't know why, I just really like the lines to feel smooth. If you're using hot press paper, you'll see less of like it's called the tooth or that texture of the paper. If you're using cold press, you're probably gonna see some more cold press easily. And there we go, ta-da, it's done. How fun. If you wanted to add like, I don't know, like maybe something cute like that down the side of your lines, or like more, I don't know, festive flair. This part's already wet, or still wet, so it's gonna bleed a little bit more, but that's kind of fun, right? So you can totally do that. But well, now I feel like since I did it over there, I kind of need to do it over here. So let's do like a little doot, 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 doot. Oh, yep, that's definitely not dry. And I love it. Perfect. All right, let's get into the next one. That one was short and sweet. Okay, for this one, I'm going to be using a dropper, but you can also still do this if you have your brush. So I'll show you how to do it with your brush, but if you want to use the dropper, go for it. We're going to create little drops of water on our paper. So this is great for like kind of learning how to pick up water and put it on your paper. I don't know, can you see that little droplet? Let's kind of take a look from the side view because... Do you see it? Look at how it's just like, hello, jiggling on top of the paper. How fun. Okay. Boop. So if you have your brush, you can see, you can totally do this. Let me show you how it works with the eyedropper. You just pick up some of your water. Mine has a little pink to it because that's what I've been using in this water, and this water's a little dirty. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create these little dots, various sizes. I'm going to kind of start with a lot up at the top and slowly have them get more spread out as we move down the page. What I don't want is I really don't want them to touch. And I like when they're just water because watching the paint flow in is going to be really fun. Okay, let's see. Doot, doot, doot. Let's do a few more up here. Okay, this is going to be a fun one. All right. That's the little dropper. It makes the funniest noises. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually like tickle the tops of my paints. I want a lot of paint here. Tickle the top. I've got some paint on here, and I'm actually just going to put it right there on the droplet. And you can tippity tap it in. Let's see if I can make it show a little bit more. Did you see that? Oh my God, how cool is that? Wait till you see it in person. It's even cooler. Let's see if I can get closer. Okay. So the tricky thing is you don't want to pop the bubbles. I feel like this is like the game of Operation, you know. You gotta be careful. But how cool is that? Okay, so you can do more than one color. You can do all the same color. This is your rodeo, baby. And it's just really fun to see how these will dry. This one, you're going to want to like let it dry for a long time. But it's kind of fun to see like how powerful this paper is, how much it can hold up to. I'm using Arsh 140-pound watercolor paper, cold press, and do you see that? Like it can jiggle and it keeps it on the page, which is so fun. If your dots do, spill, it's not the end of the world. It's still going to look very cool. But it's kind of fun to just test the boundaries of this paper a little bit. Oh my gosh. And it's just fun. It's just so fun. Okay. Now, if you were here in real life, I would be like, what do you think? Should we splatter it? But you're not here to tell me no, so I'm going to do it. Okay. So you can see I'm taking my active brush is this one, and I'm using a second brush, or you can use a pencil or whatever. And I'm going to hit the active brush, the one with the paint, on the other one. Okay. And wherever I point the tip of that brush is going to be where the paint goes. So I love this because we're going to get a couple different kinds of little water droplets on our page. I love how this probably is going into some of those dots. And I can't wait to see how this all looks once it's dry. I'll have to report back because we love it. Okay. Now go put this in a safe spot where it's not going to jiggle too much. If you need to like move everything else out of the way. Oh my gosh. Can we move it? Okay. It remained unscathed. All right. I will see you for the next one. Okay. So for this next one, what we are going to do is we are going to create some letters. We're going to create the word love going down this way, Love. But we're going to do it by painting not the letters. So that kind of inverse effect. So if you want to draw it out, I probably will just to make sure. We're going to do some bubble letters or some block letters, whatever your preference is. And you could do a name. You could do another word, whatever you want. And the goal is to get the whole rest of this tag covered in watercolor, except for these letters. And I'm doing it really, really light because I really don't want it to show up once I've already painted. It's not my best bubble lettering, but we're okay with that. And then we're going to go down kind of like how we did for the gradient wash, but we are going to just work our way around the letters, okay? So I'm not as worried about the gentle blend of the colors. I kind of want to just throw colors wherever. The only thing I'm worried about is not getting inside the letters that I drew out. And if there's dry lines, we're cool with that. Blooms and bleeds get wild. Okay. I'm just working my way down, trying not to neglect any of the lines that are between where I've put paint and where the dry paper is. But if it happens, it is what it is. Okay. All right, we got the L. I'm going to add a little bit more color here so you can't see my pencil lines as much. Oh my gosh, this is kind of cool. It looks like tie-dye a little bit. Okay. So fun. Oh my gosh. This is going to look so cool, y'all. So excited that I just can't hide it. Oh, don't forget the O. And then I like to kind of try to do a similar color to those like interior colors. around it so it doesn't look like it's just a random drop of paint out of nowhere. You know, it looks intentional if the colors kind of match around that spot. Okay, we're going to the V. All right. We love to see it. Looks like I got some paint splatters on here from one of the other ones. Oop, totally just painted into one of my letters, but I think we can save it. We're just pulling that paint down. If you like how it's kind of splotchy right there, just add water instead of paint, and it's going to push the pigment aside and create that cool bloom where the water kind of pushes back against the paint. All right. Ooh, got to get into these little E. Oh my gosh, I feel like this looks like very tie-dye and cool. If I do say so myself. Look at this cool thing we made. Oh my gosh. Ta-da! How fun is that? Love ya. Amazing. This can be a really fun technique to use for portrait silhouettes as well. So either you do the wet and wet inside the portrait. So let's say you're doing like a portrait of your dog or something. Just take a picture, cut out the outside, and you can either fill in where their body is, or you can fill in the outside and leave their body white. So, okay, do you see this? So cool. Let's zoom in. You got to see the bloom. Yummy! Do you see how it's like the water has pushed the paint up against here and met a spot that's already dry? So all that paint that's been pushed is, it's kind of like when you leave ring in the tub, I guess, but in a cooler and less gross way. Blooms are so pretty because you really get to see that paint interacting with the water, and it's just yummy. So that's that. Let's do the next one. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're at our last one. So for this one, we're going to do almost like some like little greenery, but with pink because it's cute. So basically I'm just going to do like a little bit of kind of floral bedoodles around the edge of this. And when I am making little leaves and clusters, I like to just really I'm going to mostly just use the tip of my brush. So I'm not going to be painting here. I'm going to be just like pressing my brush down. So let's get the side by side. So I'm going to do like, you can see I'm just kind of tapping the side of my brush down here. Okay, got a little flower. Oh, that's so cute. Okay, I might do a couple more. Just here and there. I'm not even like really pulling it along. It's just the side of my brush. I'm just pushing. Okay, so imagine the center part. You know, you might want to put like a little dot in the center so you know where all the petals are coming from. That's always helpful when you know where you're going. And I like to have the tip of my brush be meeting in the center here. So I find that's where I have the most control. Okay. And then let's do a little bit up here too. Ooh. And it doesn't have to be like 5 petals all the time. It can be just whatever. We're just using the side of our brush to create flower-like shapes. You know, nobody's getting hurt. We're not taking people to the moon. It's just some little blobs on your paper. We can do this. All right, so let's do a little bit right here. See how I'm moving my pen or my brush around that center point to get the right angle. So you can either move your hand or you can actually just move your paper, okay? Like that's probably easier. I don't know, feeling lazy, I guess. No, actually, I'm really worried about bumping the dots, so I'm trying not to move my paper too much. Okay, so now I think I'm going to take the purple and I'm going to do some leaves, okay? So when I do leaves, I'm going to just take the tip of my brush and kind of push and just pull up with my brush. So again, tip of the brush, push, and pull up. And that's a leaf. Okay? It's a really big leaf for that flower. So since this flower is still wet, I'm actually just going to add some water to the ends here so we can make it a little bigger and make it not look so overpowering. Okay? Let's grab some more leaves. We'll make some little leaves here. So tip, push, out. Tutu. Is this the fanciest thing I've ever done? No, it is not. Is it pretty cute? Yeah, it is. Okay. Tip, push, up. Let's do it again. Tip, push, up. Tip, push, tip, push. There we go. Boop. Let's do a couple more over there, and then we're going to add some little circle dots. Let's do some little tiny ones right here. Boop. Boop, boop. Maybe one right there. Okay. Let's just do some red little berries or something. Do, 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 do. Oop, that one came together. That's okay. I'm just adding little dots. Maybe some over here, just for some texture. If you go at it from the side, they're going to be a little bit more like the shape of our leaves. If you go from the top, they're going to be a bit more circular. Okay. Oh, I keep going off the side. I'm so sorry. All right. Fancy. That's pretty cute. I think I need a little bit more right here. Let's just do like a little flower. I like it. And we'll do a little leaf so it doesn't look so empty. Okay. I love it. So cute. And we just made 10 different designs. So if you got the kit, you have five in there. So you'll pick your favorites, but woo! Almost wiggled that jelly one. Here, let's back up so we can see the whole thing. Ah, so cute. Let's get it here. Make this our full screen. We can look at all the things we made and go, ooh, ah. Ooh, ah. Oh my gosh, look at that. That is so fun. I am so excited to see how your things go. Please send pictures. Tag me at splatterandbloom.com. I would love, love, love to see your paintings. And yeah, there it is on social media. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below. If you need resources like supplies, that should be linked below as well. If you really enjoyed this, I also offer full-size watercolor kits on our website, and you can find that at splatterandbloom.com. So thank you so much for painting with me. Make sure you like and subscribe for more watercolor tips and tricks. I think that's it. Thank you. Happy painting. Bye.